Welcome to Joy Recovery Radio. In this space, we talk about betrayal, recovery, and relational harm through the lens of integrity, accountability, and trauma-informed care. Our goal is not to rush healing or prescribe outcomes, but to offer language, clarity, and grounded perspective. This podcast is educational. You're invited to listen slowly, take what resonates, and leave the rest. Let's begin.
We love it when we get questions from listeners, and we've had several lately, and we want to address one that came in recently. I want to give you the heart of it, not a literal word-for-word reading of what was submitted, because a lot of men are sitting with some version of this situation right now in your relationship and in your recovery. So one man writes in, and the gist of his question is he's about a year past discovery. He did a full therapeutic disclosure a couple of months ago. He's actively working on his integrity, and he says so, honestly, including the admission that he still catches himself at times shading the truth on the spot in the moment. His question is basically this: what do I do when my partner accuses me of something I genuinely did not do? How do I say no and mean it without getting defensive and without setting off another trigger? And he provides a few examples. He says that one night the bed was shaking and she asked if he had been acting out. The next night, the same thing. Turned out it was a freight train running past their subdivision. And they only figured that out when they both happened to wake up at the same moment one night. Another example he offered was she asked whether he had silenced his message notifications on his phone so that he could talk to somebody without her knowing. And he hadn't done that. A button had gotten pushed by accident. He says these things come up every week or so, and he's frustrated because everywhere he looks, every podcast, every resource, the advice seems to be the same. Empathy, empathy, empathy. And he agrees with all of that. He just wants someone to give him a strategy for the times that the suspicion or the concern is flat out wrong. That is the question we're going to address today. And I'm going to try to actually help with this. And I'll be straight with you up front from the beginning. Part of helping is going to be telling you why the way the question is set up is part of the problem and part of what's keeping you stuck. I have watched enough men sit in this similar spot to have a few things that I think would add value. Let me start with the thing that you probably don't want to hear, and then I'll spend most of this episode on what to actually do, because I'm not going to leave you with nothing. You asked for a strategy to handle false accusations. I'm not going to give you one. And before you hear that as some kind of dodge from me, let me say what this is not about. I don't think you're guilty. And I don't think your wife is automatically right every single time. The reason is something else. The goal that you have set, which is basically winning the moment, winning the conversation, being believed when you're innocent, that's not the right goal. And chasing it is going to make things worse, even when you are telling the truth. Let me try to explain why. Because if I just say that, it'll sound more like empathy, 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 and you're going to tune me out. Think about how the secret sexual basement actually worked. For however long it ran for you, years or decades, there were two realities in your home. There was one reality, the one that had the basement in it. And then there was the reality that your wife was living in the one where the basement did not exist, as far as she knew. And the thing that held those two realities apart was you being convincing, your skills of persuasion. Every time her gut signaled something was off, every time something didn't add up, you had an answer, a calm, reasonable answer. And your answer won the moment. It won the conversation. In fact, it beat her instinct over and over. Her gut said one thing, probably hundreds, if not thousands of times, and your words said something different. And she learned to trust your words instead of her own gut. Now, I want you to sit with what that means when it comes to the bed shaking. When she asks if you are acting out, and you say no, and then you point to the train, what you're asking her to do in that moment is the exact thing that injured her originally. You're asking her to trust your calm, reasonable, persuasive explanation over the alarm going off in her own body. The last time she did that on a large scale, she eventually found out there was a basement. So even when you're right about the train, the tactic that you're using to persuade her out of her own intuition is the same move that built the injury for her in the first place. Here's the piece I really want you to sit with. I'm going to say this with as much kindness as I can muster right now, because you were honest with me with your question, and you deserve honesty back. You told me you still struggle at times to tell the truth on the spot. I appreciate your candor. I respect that you admitted that. A lot of men won't. But that sentence changes everything about your question. If you're still, even occasionally, even what you consider to be quote unquote small lies, if you're still shading the truth in the moment, then you don't actually have clean access to the category of quote false accusations. From the inside, an innocent no and a deceptive no can feel very similar. And from her side, they're impossible to tell apart, because your track record includes both recently. So when you say, quote, you've lived in accusation for months over the train, I want to push back on that phrase, living in accusation, because you also, by your own account, were still not consistently honest with her. Both of those were going on in your home at the same time. Her radar, what we call her inner polygraph, it's not malfunctioning when it goes off. It is highly attuned to you. It is calibrated to a man who is, by his own description, not yet reliable. And her inner polygraph is going to keep firing until the thing that it's measuring actually changes. She does not owe you the benefit of the doubt. The work of becoming reliable, that's on your side. That's your work to do. Let me try to say it a little bit differently. I don't want this to land as a gotcha where you submitted a question and then I put a bullseye on your chest. I'm not saying you're lying about the train. I don't think you are. I think you're telling the truth. But here's what I am saying. As long as your word is only sometimes reliable and sometimes it's unreliable, you don't get to be the one who decides which of her suspicions are false. You've lost that authority for a while. Earning it back is the whole project.
Do you want to go deeper with teaching like what you're hearing today? That's why we created the Joy Recovery Academy. The Academy is our flagship educational space designed to help you make sense of betrayal trauma, integrity abuse, and what real recovery actually looks like. This is where clarity replaces confusion and where you finally get a map for your recovery, for both the betrayer and the betrayed. The Academy includes live teaching with Q&A twice a week, and every live teaching is available anytime in our on-demand video library in case you can't make the live event. The Academy also features hundreds of the same tools and resources that we use with our private coaching clients. Right now, you can get the first 7 days free, so you can check it out and see if it is what you're looking for. Go to joy-recovery.com, click Academy, and join us today.
I understand. I want to be fair. There's a lot of complexity here because it would be easy to walk away thinking, all right, she's always right, I'm always wrong, and that's not what I'm saying either. This isn't a project where we're trying to erase you and your voice. For betrayed partners, it can be difficult to tell the difference between trauma reactivity and real, genuine intuition, because both feel very real and feel very urgent. Both feel true to her and her body. One of them is the past that's firing into the present, and the other is an accurate read of what's happening right now. And in the heat of it, neither of you can always tell which. That's part of the injury. The instrument that used to sort those things out has been damaged. Here's what I want you to understand and practice humility about. You trained her not to trust you. You conditioned her to disbelieve your words. So should we really be shocked when she does what you've trained her to do? No, I'm not telling you every concern that she raises and every suspicion that she has is 100% accurate. Sometimes it is the train. What I'm telling you is that you are not in a position to be the judge of that. And trying to be the judge, trying to sort her suspicions into two categories of valid and invalid, and then you litigating the ones that you deem invalid, it's going to keep you both stuck. You're going to be in the same position a year from now, asking the same question. The sorting of her suspicions is her work on her timeline, hopefully with support. But your work is a different job. You mentioned an example in your question that you submitted. You said that sometimes she thinks that you're getting validation from women at work. That's another suspicion that she has. But notice what's different about this suspicion compared to the train. The train was checkable. In principle, you could find the freight schedule and you could show it to her. You could provide some evidence. But this suspicion that she has of you getting validation from women at work, there's really no evidence that you can provide to prove that this is not happening. And here's what I see go wrong. A lot of men hear an unprovable suspicion from their partner, and they feel this kind of panic because their normal game of defense that they're used to playing doesn't have any moves left. There's no evidence to line up. There's no way I can prove that I didn't do this. So they reach for the only thing that they do have, which is to go after her perception. And so they'll say things like, you're imagining things. You're seeing into things. You're trauma shopping. And now we're right back on that road that I'm about to warn you about. Because telling a betrayed woman that her discernment of you is the main problem is exactly what the basement did for years. So I want to offer that you look at this differently. When your partner has unprovable concerns and suspicions, here's how I want you to see that. It's a gift. I know that seems strange, but here's why it's a gift. It takes your normal defense game completely off the table. You can't win this moment. You can't use your persuasion skills effectively. So you get to find out, what do you do when winning the moment is not an option? And what's usually left once you stop reaching for evidence and proof is something honest. The more authentic move is to get curious about whether there's anything true with her concern, even a little bit. I'm not telling you to confess to a behavior that you did not commit, but you do have to be willing to look out loud with her at her concern instead of slamming the door on the question. Now, I have to point at something, and I want to do this with tact, because I'm not accusing you in any way. I'm warning you about a road that's easy to slide onto without even noticing. In this model that we use for our framework, there's a long list of what is called integrity abuse behaviors from the Manuela model. These are tactics that show up around deception, before and after discovery. A few of them are things like assuming the role of the victim, pathologizing her reactions, calling her dysregulated or unsettled or unstable, or saying that she's got a part of her that just wants to believe everything you say is a lie. And they're shaping the story so that you come out reasonable and she comes out irrational. Sometimes that's referred to as DARVO, which stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim offender. But here's my point. I'm flagging this because that way of thinking is leaking in some of your language in the question that you submitted. In your question, you talked about her being dysregulated, about a part of her that you think wants to disbelieve you. There might be a measure of truth in that. But that exact way of thinking, recasting her injury as she's unstable or she's irrational, is one of the most common ways I see men avoid the discomfort of being doubted. It feels like self-defense, and it is. But the impact it has on your partner is additional unnecessary harm. And here's the sign you can look for. If most of your energy is going into proving that she's wrong about you, then almost none of your energy is going into being someone that she can clearly discern. I've done versions of this myself years ago, so I'm not judging you or standing above you. And I don't shame any man for sport, but you do deserve a clear answer. All right, let's get to the constructive part. Men, what do you do in the moment when she raises a suspicion and you honestly didn't do it? Here's where I'd point you. 3 things. Number 1, answer the fear, but not the charge. When she says, "Were you acting out?" the words are a question about an act, a behavior. But underneath her question, there is a statement. And it's something closer to this. She is saying, I am scared that the basement is still here, and I won't see it coming again. Do you catch that? If you only answer or address the surface question, no, I wasn't acting out, then you've technically responded, but you've completely missed her. You can say the true thing about the behavior, but you can also turn towards the fear that's underneath it. It sounds something like this. No, I was not acting out, but I can hear that you're scared that I'm hiding something again. And that fear makes complete sense in light of what I did to you for years. I'm not giving you some clever formula so that you can win the moment. What I'm saying is refuse to leave her alone in her fear, even when the specific suspicion she has is inaccurate. Number 2, keep your no very short, but then stay with her in the discomfort. Men, if we're going to live in integrity, we must learn to answer hard questions quite often without defending yourself. When I say a clean, short no, I'm talking about one sentence. And the campaign that usually follows that sentence, the evidence, the timeline, the persuasion, trying to show her your phone so you can prove your point, and the begging her to please just believe me, all of that is defensiveness. All of it. You got to let it go. Defensiveness in the wake of betrayal is itself a form of harm to her because it's putting the weight of your comfort back onto her. So what do? You say the true thing once, one clean sentence, and then let it be uncomfortable. You can survive not being believed in a single moment. Remember, you trained her not to believe you. So why should we be shocked by this moment? Sitting in that discomfort without needing to resolve it is a form of endurance that you can build over time. Number 3, proactive transparency. This is the long game. There's a difference between being non-deceptive and being transparent. Being non-deceptive means I didn't lie when she asked me a question. I wasn't deceptive. That's not the same thing as being transparent. Being transparent means I live in a way where she doesn't have to ask because I always beat the question and the door is always open. The answer to the silence notifications fear that she had is not a better explanation of how the button got pushed. The answer is a phone that she can pick up at any time without you making a scene, accounts that she has the passwords and access to, a life that has no privacy in it. Verification is welcome, freely, and you don't keep score. The accusations slowly stop needing to be accusations because there's less and less to accuse. Now that takes months and years of consistency, not one good conversation. Let me come back to your frustration that everyone just says empathy, 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 and no one gives you strategies. I think you've spotted something real, and also you've drawn the wrong lesson from it. The reason no one hands you a strategy for false accusations, and the reason I'm not going to hand you a strategy today, is that a strategy to control how she perceives you is the same tool that built the basement, and we're refusing to put that tool back in your hand. So the answer to empathy, empathy, empathy is not strategy, strategy, strategy. It's integrity, integrity, integrity. The boring, predictable kind. The kind that's just reliable and consistent, where your word is kept honest over a long stretch of time. Her radar stands down because there's finally a track record, and there's nothing left for her radar to pick up on. Winning a conversation isn't going to get you there. A clean track record does. So I want to close this episode by talking about time, because I think underneath your whole question is a wish for this to just be done. I think part of you believes that this should be finished already. You're a year out, you did the disclosure, you're working hard. Part of you is asking, when do I get to stop living under suspicion? Well, I don't fully know the answer for you, and I'm not going to pretend like I do, and I'd be lying if I gave you a number. But I can tell you what this looks like. Trust comes back through evidence that is accumulated over time. And this is on her schedule, not yours. Her reality and her timeline, they're not yours to manage or to speed up. Doing everything right does not buy you a faster clock. This isn't a transaction. A year out. But keep in mind, your disclosure was just a few months ago. Dude, you are early in this journey. Her checking at this stage, that is not a sign that your work is not working or that she's not where she should be. Her wound is doing what wounds are supposed to do. I know that you wish she could just believe you now. And wanting to be believed today is a little bit about wanting to skip the consequences of your choices. And that's human. I have felt it too. But the consequence is the path. The doubt that you're living under is not some injustice that's being done to you. She's not being unfair. What you're living in right now is the predictable weather of something that you did. And your job is to keep being trustworthy inside that weather long enough that it changes on its own. If you want to know what, quote, long enough actually looks like, it's literally thousands of unglamorous, honest moments with your wife. None of those move the needle on her nervous system on their own. But each one is a deposit into an account that, let's be honest, it's badly overdrawn. And you don't get to decide when the balance should be safe for her. Just keep making the deposits. It's worth it. So if you want one concluding summary to carry out of here, it's this. Stop trying to win the conversation. Stop trying to win the moment. Start becoming the kind of man whose word doesn't need defending. Answer the fear that's underneath her question. Keep your no short and stay in the discomfort with her. Open the door before she has to ask a question. And give this a lot more time than you think is fair.
Thank you for listening to Joy Recovery Radio. If today's episode was helpful, you can find additional educational resources and information about the Joy Recovery Academy at joy-recovery.com. Remember, joy is possible when you live in integrity.